Y&R. Smoky Unix wood body templates, 1969. Suspicious parts. These boxes are incredible, eh? These pit boxes, these started off as just toolboxes and someone put a lawn chair on one.
I'd like to welcome everybody to the presentation. Like I said, what I'm going to be doing is giving you a review of the inspection process and what impact it had on the evolving of the race car. I'll also talk a little bit about templates in the template grid and spend a little time on the Gen 6 cars and what they're doing with the inspection with the Gen 6 cars. All right. Well, NASCAR always had rules. In 1949, it consisted of one page. And if you go up to the Heritage on the 4th floor, you'll be able to see that one page of rules that they used in 49 during their first races. As the years progressed, more and more rules were added to the rule book. You can see here in the display case how they got thicker, and thicker. The first inspections were very informal. What they usually measured was beneath the wheel for height of the car and suspension. During our first race here in Charlotte in 1949, it was our first strictly stock car race for NASCAR. A guy by the name of Glenn Dunaway won the race. Now Glenn was a heavy moonshine guy, and what he did is he needed heavier springs on his car to go from one track or one place to another, selling his moonshine. Well, the inspector at the time, whose name was Major Al Chrysler, inspected Dunaway's car after the race and found these illegal springs on his car. And what he did is he disqualified Dunaway and gave the second place finisher, Jim Roper, the win. Well, Dunaway's owner was incensed, and he sued NASCAR for $10,000. If you think about it, in 1949, that was quite a bit of money, $10,000. Well, the judge looked at the case and decided to throw it out of court. The case was here in Charlotte. He threw it out, and what that did is it gave NASCAR absolute power over its races. From that one point, that one decision gave NASCAR absolute power. And you don't think they have it now? You're mistaken. NASCAR still has absolute power over its own races. Well, in the 1960s, the super highway tracks came into being, and the auto manufacturers saw a need to improve the race cars. What they did is they made them longer, which you can see on Glory Road, and they made them a lot faster. Still, modifications were being made to the car to give it an aerodynamic edge, and one of the guys, two of them really, Smokey Unick and Junior Johnson, were great at it. Well, Junior decided to take one of his cars. It was a Ford Galaxy in 1966 that Bud Renz raced in Dixie 400. What he did is he chopped the roof and lowered the front end and raised the back end. And the car looked like a banana. And it also had a yellow tint to it because Holly Farms, Poultry Farms, was the sponsor. So it looked like a yellow banana. Well, NASCAR didn't want any more atrocities like this racing on the track. So what they did is they hired a carpenter, and that carpenter built templates for each of the cars that were being used in NASCAR during that time. And you can see a couple of these templates that Smokey Unick used for his Fords. And what they had to do is make sure that the top, when they went all the way across and certain parts of the car, fit underneath those templates. Well, okay, that was okay. Then the 80s came, and they're still using templates in the 80s. But in 1983, Richard Petty won his 198th race here in Charlotte. A lot of things happened in Charlotte. But during post-inspection, they found illegal tires on Petty's car. In fact, the left tires were the ones that they found illegal. They also noticed that his engine was much bigger than the one that was okayed by NASCAR. His engine was 392 cubic inches, and the acceptable was 359. So he was 43 or 33 cubic inches over the size of the car. Well, what NASCAR did, and they do this now too, is they gave Petty the win. Because they like to give the win to who the spectators see going across the finish line first. But they fine you heavily too. What they did is they fined Petty's team $35,000. They took away 104 Winston Cup points from him, but still declared the winner. It's pretty much like what Matt Kenseth did, where they gave him a heavy fine, a heavy fine, and still he had to win. So what occurred there made Petty very angry. He was very angry, and he told the reporters at the post-race interview, "I only drive the car. I don't know what my pit crew is doing," which I guess is okay, except his brother was the head of the pit crew. But they gave him the win, and they took away his points and fined him that $35,000 in the 1980s. Well, after the 80s, carrying into 2000, what they decided to do in 2001 is to build a common body style and have templates for the various body styles that they were using in NASCAR at the time. The problem was they had over 40 templates they were using, and the inspection became very tedious. So that in 2007, what they decided to do is standardize the body, which they did here. They standardized the body, and they came up with this template grid. Now, the template grid is used on all 43 race cars, if there are 43 at that race, and they are inspected 5 times using this template grid. Pre-practice, pre-qualifying, post-qualifying, pre-practice or pre-race, and then after the race, the first 5 finishers must go through the template grid in one car at random. Now that only measures the top of the car. Now this part of the race car is actually manufactured by the auto manufacturer, and the back end is also manufactured by the auto manufacturer. So you have Toyota, Dodge, Chevy, and Ford, and it's color-coded. If you look at the grids that are behind you, that's what they use from the back. The ones that you see there are yellow for, or orange for Toyota. Again, yellow for Ford, red for Dodge, and blue for Ford. Besides measuring the front, the back, and the top, they also measure the rear window, and this is the template that they use for the rear window. You can see it fits over the rear window. If you look at the one for Toyota, you see a point on it. So you can tell that that's not going to fit on the rear window of this Ford. Now what they do when the race car comes into the inspection area, this is inspection number 2. They drop down the template grid, fits onto the race car, and they use a step gauge that you see here to measure underneath the templates. There are 4 blocks, and they're lettered G, B, Y, R, standing for various colors: green, blue, yellow, and red. Now notice on the template it has a B here, right here if you wanted to look. So that means when they put the step gauge under that, it cannot go past the B, which it doesn't. It goes past the Y at a G and the R, but stops at the B. So that would pass. If it stopped at the yellow or green, went by, stopped at the yellow, excuse me, it wouldn't pass. And if it didn't pass, what the inspectors do is they allow the crew members to come in and pound certain parts of the car, if they can pound it to make it inspection free and get through the inspection. But that doesn't happen all the time. And they have to either remove the car and have it done outside the inspection area, which most of them do. In fact, that happened a couple of years ago to Jimmy Johnson. What he did at Daytona, they saw, even before he went into the inspection area, that his C-pillar did not meet inspection qualifications. So what they did, his crew, is they actually cut out the C-pillar, sent it to Hendricks. Hendricks remolded it, put it back, and they welded it back on. Jimmy was able to race, but he didn't win that Daytona 500. So that was what they do. Now, like I say, that this inspection takes place 5 times, and they have to go through it 5 times. If Jimmy Johnson's C-pillar still didn't meet the requirements, they'd have to do some other work on it if he wanted to race in the race. Well, this all changed with the Gen 6 car. The Gen 6 car has a few features that are not on this car. First of all, they moved the lights from the back, or the numbers from the back to the fenders from the back. They put the driver's name on the back windshield and the front windshield. They lessened the weight of the car by about 160 pounds, and it became more streamlined, more front and back. It was harder to bump draft, and in fact they can't bump draft with the new Gen 6 car. They added a roll bar here. They call it the Newman bar because he's had so many accidents with cars falling on top of him, that they named the new bar that they put there on the Gen 6 the roller bar, and then they had a support bar in the middle. They also had to come up with side grids for inspection on the new car, because remember, the new car is an auto manufactured car coming from the showroom, strictly from the manufacturer, so everything has to be measured. What they also added to it was a laser inspection, similar to the one that we use in Formula One, but massive steps ahead. Now what that laser can do is it can take 48 positions on the race car, and using 22 measurements, measure those positions in about 1 minute and 40 seconds. But most of those measurements now come underneath the car. The rear axle tone, the height measurements, so they're measuring mostly underneath. But they plan over the next few years to be able to use the laser for the whole car. Now obviously all our racing teams have the laser already in their facility. And remember, everything has to be approved by NASCAR, even though it comes through the auto manufacturer, it has to be approved. Remember the pre-Daytona race, all the wrecks that were occurring because of the bump drafting and everything else they were doing, they didn't have enough parts that were certified, and remember that a lot of them couldn't race again because they didn't have the parts. That's exactly what we're waiting for. We're supposed to get a Gen 6 car from Joe Gibbs, but he's using the parts. He probably needs the parts before he's going to give us a Gen 6 car. We probably won't get that until the race season is over, but at least we'll have a Gen 6 car. All right, well, thank you for listening to the presentation. Enjoy the rest of the haul.